usual, with Rich taking the role. And our main emphasis, since we're going to work some bills, is to make sure that we've got everyone on, at least in the room or inside the Capitol building. So, Rich, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Chairman Representative Kelly is present. Vice Chair Representative Hoheisel is present. Ranking Minority Member Representative Shue is present. Representative Anderson. Representative Baker is present. Representative Bergkamp is present. Representative Day is present. Representative Donahoe. Representative Finney.
Present. Present.
Thank you. Representative Finney is present. She's remote. Representative Kessler is present. Representative Lynn is present. Representative Neely. Representative.
Both Representative Neely and Representative Donahoe are remote.
Thank you. Representative Poskin.
Present by WebEx in my Capitol office.
Thank you. Representative Samsel. I saw him earlier.
Here,
he's present. He's remote. Yes, thank you.
And in the building, thank you.
Representative Topliker is present. Representative Watzinger is present. And Representative Weigel is present.
And Rich, did you see Representative Anderson walk in behind you?
I did. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. We will point out to you, if you haven't, you will receive a answer, Representative Lynn, to your question on the 3 years after divorce. Kelly Van Swole submitted that and shows kind of what other states have the same thing and how it conforms with language in HUD FHA definition of first-time home buyer, and there'll be a link in there for everyone that you could go to and see the HUD FHA definition of that. So she supplied that to us. And thanks for doing that, Kelly. Well, today we're looking at kind of what we've been heading towards is some final action on a couple of bills. And the first one that we'll take up is the Senate Bill 15, which is the Economic Recovery Act. We know that it started out as a House bill that we heard, and then we waited for the Senate bill to come over to us that had all the requested amendments that we heard about added to it, and we had our hearing on it on Monday. So I'd like to ask David if you could give us a refresher on this, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Senate Bill 15. This is the bill that enacts the Kansas Economic Recovery Loan Deposit Program. It updates the field of membership requirements for credit unions and allows privilege tax deductions on agricultural real estate loans and single-family residence loans. As the chair indicated, there were amendments that the Senate Financial Institutions and Insurance Committee put on the bill, primarily relating to the loan deposit program. The definition of eligible borrower has now been not more than 200 full-time employees, maintain offices or operating facilities and transacting business in Kansas. There's the definition of eligible lending institution to require the farm credit system to have at least one branch in Kansas. Then language to require the state treasurer to requiring the legislature to perform a review of the program as part of the treasurer's annual report on or after January 1, 2024. That also requires in the loan deposit program that the borrower's business expenses be those that are in Kansas to actually use the proceeds of the loan. It amends language, providing that agreements between eligible lending institutions and the treasurer for loan deposits be placed for a period of time not to exceed 10 years, and that is considered appropriate in coordination with the underlying economic recovery loan. And then there's a definition that was amended to qualified agricultural real estate loans in the section that is dealing with the privilege tax deduction, so just to conform this with the existing farm loan credit definitions. And then there were, like I said, then there was that floor amendment that made it 200 as the number for eligible and full-time employees. I can stand for any questions.
Yeah. Any questions for David? It doesn't appear any questions, David. So you covered everything well. Now take up Senate Bill 15. Is there a motion concerning Senate Bill 15? Representative Hoheisel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee pass out SB 15 favorably.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Wassinger. Is there any discussion? Any amendments? If not, Representative Hoheisel, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
We have a motion and second, and we're ready for our vote. So we'll try to catch everyone. We're going to do it on a voice vote, but we'll try to make sure that we try to hear everyone, and whether you're in your office or here. So all those in favor of sending out Senate Bill 15 indicate by saying yes.
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 That was a trick. Well, just to make sure, instead of yes, we'll do aye.
To the side.
Aye.
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 And on the front
Okay.
side, it's just swollen and stiff.
I think we got a ayes. Any opposed by nay? Don't hear any. With the aye votes, the motion carries, and the bill is ready to move to Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like, if I may, my yes vote recorded in the minutes.
Okay. Anyone else wish to have their vote recorded in the minutes? Rich will do that. If you just kind of shout out, and we'll watch to try to get it. Anyone else? No? Okay. Motion passes, and Representative Hoheisel's vote will be recorded. So we'll be ready to move on to our next, make sure that I've covered everything that I need to do. Okay, I think we're fine there. Our next one that we have up is House Bill 2187, and 2187 is the First-Time Homebuyers Program. And so, David, can you give us an overview again of the First-Time Homebuyers Program?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, House Bill 2187. This is the First-Time Homebuyer Savings Account Act. This would allow for individuals to set up first-time homebuyer savings accounts with financial institutions and to make the deposits into those accounts with favorable tax treatment. The tax benefits would be the maximum contribution to an account any tax year shall be $3,000 for an individual and $6,000 for a married couple filing joint return, with the maximum all contributions into an account for all tax years at $24,000 for an individual, $48,000 for that married filing joint couple. with a maximum total amount in the account of $50,000. Monies in the account may be used for eligible expenses relating to a designated beneficiary's purchase or construction of a primary residence located in Kansas, used for eligible expenses relating to the beneficiary's purchase or construction of a residence outside of Kansas if they're active duty military and were stationed in Kansas for any time after the creation of the account. It could be used for the above expenses, but if there was a contract for purchase or construction did not close, monies may also be transferred to a newly created first-time home buyer savings account, and they can be used to pay service fees assessed by the financial institution. If monies are not used for these purposes, they could be subject to recapture, and then they would be subject to Kansas income tax. If they are used for those purposes, though, they are not subject to Kansas income tax. This would require the Secretary of Revenue to establish forms for account holders to annually report information with the state, with the holders' state income tax return. And then it requires the Secretary prior to July 1, 2022 to adopt rules and regulations necessary to administer the program. And then provides that no financial institution shall be required to designate an account as first-time homebuyer savings account, or the designate the beneficiaries of the account in the financial institution's account contracts or systems. The financial institution does not have to track the use of money withdrawn from account or report information to the Department of Revenue or governmental agency that is not otherwise required by law. The financial institution is also not responsible for determining an account holder's eligibility for income tax modifications, or determining that the monies are being used for the eligible expenses, or having to report or remit any taxes or penalties relating to account monies. And like I said, this program would take effect on July 1, 2022. And the bill itself becomes effective on publication of the statute book. Stand for any questions.
Questions for David, Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, David. I'm going to put you on the hot spot. I think this is a great bill, but I question that they're going to need to hire one full-time person to do this, that they can't find someone, Revenue can't find someone. Have they justified this one full-time employee that we have to add to the state of Kansas?
Are you speaking to the fiscal note?
Yes.
I don't know about the department's that one FT position. I've not received that information. I don't know how that was determined. I do not have anything to do with the fiscal note itself.
I'd hope they'd given you something. Is there anyone on from Revenue? A question I'll have to ask them. Thank you.
I think history shows that anything new takes a little extra, so I think that usually shows up. But we'll hope that it'll start out fairly easy and be easy to accommodate, because I believe most of the instances, the accounts are through different types of financial institutions. So shouldn't be too bad. So we'll go, but I think the program is a good one, and appreciate your question on that very much. Any other questions for David? If not, thank you, David. We will now take up House Bill 2187. Is there a motion? Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee pass out HB 2187 favorably.
Is there a second? Representative Shue, seconds. Any discussion? Any amendments? If not, Representative Hoheisel, would you care to close on your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
You've heard the motion, and I won't throw anyone off. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the motion carries. Representative Hoheisel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like my affirmative vote reflected in the minutes.
Okay, anyone else wish to have their vote recorded? Representative Wassinger, would like her vote recorded? Russ, you want, were you an aye? Representative Weigel, you wanted your vote recorded? Representative Kessler would like his vote recorded. Representative Poskins would like her vote recorded. So, yeah, and so hearing no no's, we should have had a unanimous vote. Okay, anyone else? If not, that one will leave our committee and head to the floor. And so rapidly moving through this, we are going to have a hearing now on House Bill 2158. And this is known as, we've been calling it the trauma bill, but there is a fiscal note included in your packet of information on this bill. And if we could have a briefing on the bill from Natalie Scott, our reviser. Natalie?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2158 would amend statutes related to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, specifically related to the Trauma Advisory Committee and the Regional Trauma Councils. So KSA 655664 in current law gives the Trauma Advisory Committee the authority to conduct closed session meetings when reviewing trauma cases. That statute also declares that any records or findings of the committee or of the department in consultation with the committee would be privileged. But on July 1, 2021, those authorities to go into closed executive session and to keep those records confidential would expire. So House Bill 2158 would remove that expiration date and allow the continuation of those closed sessions and record keeping provisions. And then KSA 655665 is also amended. Right now, it gives regional trauma councils the authority to conduct closed session meetings when reviewing those trauma cases. And similarly, that statute declares that records or findings of the committee or the department in consultation with the committee are privileged. But again, on July 1, 2021, those authorities would expire. So House Bill 2158 would remove that expiration date and allow the committee and councils to continue conducting those closed sessions. And if passed, House Bill 2158 would become effective on publication in the statute book. And I can take any questions.
Any questions for Natalie? And thank you, Natalie. Melissa or Heather in research, any comments you'd want to make? I don't hear anything, so I think we're ready to go. This officially opens the hearing on House Bill 2158, and we'll start with the proponents for this bill. And the first ones of our oral proponents that I have listed is Joseph House, paramedic, executive director of the Kansas Board of EMS. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the mask, you guys can hear that, or comes off a whole lot easier and understand. So, Chairman Kelly, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of House Bill 2158. Natalie did a tremendous job of explaining exactly what this does. So the that peer review session happening in closed session is a great idea. No one wants their patient care records out in public or discussed or privileged. And so without this provision, that peer review, we do believe would end because of the risk associated with sharing those records out into public. Healthcare providers are not going to do that to the patients that they've taken care of. And so we feel as though the peer review process is an extremely important process of performance improvement. It is the only method by which healthcare providers have that opportunity to identify weaknesses, or really more importantly, identify those promising practices, those things that show that they're going to make a true difference. Identifying, that's the first step. Having that opportunity to be able to share those through an advisory capacity and for those recommendations to be made into policy is the absolute second necessary step. And that's what this does. This allows that committee to meet, to deliberate, to find out, to make those recommendations, to identify those promising practices, to share those with the Secretary of Health and Environment so that he or she can then promulgate that out as they deem necessary. And so with that, the Emergency Medical Services Board stands in full support of House Bill 2158. We urge your support and favorable passage of that, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have at the appropriate time.
Since we have a low number of oral proponents, any questions for Mr. House? Representative Toplicker?
Yes, I just wondered, what is the main problem that is the reason for the introduction of this bill? What can't you do? You can't have these meetings. Is that what it is? And it's caused a problem because you can't do this now. Could you explain that a little more?
Sure. So thank you. So the purpose behind this extending that date is as of July 1st, 2021. That would have to occur within an open session. That would not be able to occur within that closed ability. And so the information with the patient involved would end up being shared in an open meeting, which would not necessarily, in our opinion, be a good idea.
And it is correct, there was like a 20-year sunset that is expiring, so that's the other reason to come back with this bill. Is correct?
Natalie would probably be the best person on the history of how long that's been.
Mr. Chairman, it's practice in the Kansas Open Records Act that when we create a new exception to the Open Records Act, we sunset that for a 5-year period, and then that gives you guys a chance to review those exceptions and then decide whether you want to carry them forward. So it's pretty standard practice. We do that all the time.
Okay, so this would have had the period of time that we could come back, it could have been reviewed, and then can come back and put it into place. That answer your question, Representative Toplicker? Okay, great. Any other questions? Sounds like you got away with just one, Mr. House.
Perfect. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Our second proponent, we have Wendy O'Hare, Trauma Program Director, Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And she going to be remote, so welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee for allowing me to support Bill 2158. My name is Wendy O'Hare, and I am the Director of the Kansas Trauma Program, which is housed in the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. I'd like to take a couple minutes of your time and explain a little bit about the Kansas Trauma System. Advisory Committee on Trauma is a committee of 24 individuals made up of physicians, nurses, emergency medical services, and we also have 4 legislators that sit on the committee. The Advisory Committee on Trauma reviews the latest standards in trauma care for injured patients and makes those recommendations to the Secretary of KDHE for best practices. The Advisory Committee on Trauma also monitors data trends in making these decisions. There are 6 regions within trauma regions within the state, and those borders are aligned with the Kansas Board of EMS for better collaboration. The membership of those 6 regions include physicians who have an interest in trauma care, nurses, emergency medical services, as well as local health departments. We're also actively seeking out rehabilitation facilities to join our regions as well, just to continue establish and increase the continuation of trauma patients. The 6 regions within the state are very active, and they take advice from the Advisory Committee on Trauma and those standards of care that are established, and then they implement those within their regions. They are huge proponents of injury prevention programs. The 6 regions receive funding from our program, and the vast majority of that funding is spent on education. And so physicians, nurses, emergency medical services personnel, health departments, they all have an opportunity to further their education in trauma care and injury prevention programs. The Kansas Trauma Program also houses the Trauma Registry. This registry is provided at no cost to every hospital in the state. Every hospital, we do have a statute that every hospital reports their trauma data to our registry, and the Advisory Committee on Trauma then takes that data and evaluates it, monitors, trends it to make recommendations to the Secretary of KDHE. This bill, we are asking for your support in this bill. As Mr. House had discussed, it will eliminate the sunset clause for the peer review meetings. So healthcare providers are instinctively always looking for ways that they can improve their practices, and the best way for them to do this, and really the only way for them to do this, is for healthcare to gather together and discuss cases that they have encountered. So these peer review meetings are meetings where only the healthcare providers that were involved in that particular patient's care are gathered together to discuss openly within a closed meeting what happened during that case. We also have peer review committee officers, and those are made up of trauma surgeons, trauma nurses, and kind of oversee those meetings. So this is really the best way for continued improvement in care in the state to happen. And so with that, I would just ask for your support in House Bill 2058 and opportunity to be here today, and I will stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Have any questions? Doesn't appear that we do. Thank you very much for being here today. know this bill is important to you, and so appreciate the chance to deal with it. Our next proponent that we have, potentially getting ready for surgery today, I don't know whether it's trauma surgery or not, but Dr. Kimberly Malik, Kansas State Chair, Committee on Trauma. And welcome.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me. I am Dr. Kim Malik. I am the Kansas State Chair for the Committee on Trauma, and I'm also the Pediatric Trauma Medical Director at Wesley Medical Center here in Wichita. I have been a member of the Advisory Council on Trauma for Kansas since 2012, and the Council on Trauma has been dear to my heart for obvious reasons. And this bill is very important to us. Kansas is an amazing state. It's a complicated state. It has extreme urban areas and extreme rural areas. But one thing that is common throughout all of Kansas is trauma. And trauma is a tremendous health burden throughout the state. We have level 1 trauma centers, and each of these trauma centers admit over 2,500 patients per year, all with a mix coming from indigenous areas to the most affluent areas. And the Advisory Council on Trauma is the one area where we can all come together from all 6 regions in Kansas, and we can sit together and discuss all the various traumas that we have seen and go through the registry and go through the mechanisms and discuss the trends, discuss the problems in pre-hospital situations that we're seeing, discuss the trends in transport, discuss the trends in hospital care, discuss the trends in post-discharge care that we're experiencing. Many of the providers that are seeing the patients after discharge are present during the meetings, and so they're able to give us feedback to us at these level 1 centers and let us know what they are experiencing post-discharge that are invaluable to what we do at the level 1 and level 2 centers. Kansas needs an organized, cohesive trauma system. In many other states in this country that do have such systems, they have been proven to be extremely effective and have shown that there are tremendous improvements in patient care and long-term outcomes when we have such effective organized systems. And the Advisory Council on Trauma is essential to continuing and maintaining an effective organized trauma system throughout Kansas. Additionally, a trauma system is not just a collection of hospitals. A trauma system is a organized, cohesive group of individuals from various specialties, including pre-hospital, including nursing, including physicians, including para-hospital, that are able to come together with various perspectives and are able to bring data, bring cases, and discuss openly, honestly, and critically trends and situations that we are experiencing so that we can change our practices and work together to improve patient outcomes. Because as I mentioned, 2,500 cases per year at 3 level 1 centers is, as I mentioned before, a tremendous health burden. And that's just at our level 1 centers. We have several level 2 centers, level 3 centers, and 34 level 4 centers. And the Advisory Council on Trauma is the housing for those level 4 centers directly. So we need to maintain this support and continue working towards a organized, cohesive state trauma system, and a closed peer review process is essential to that. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning.
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any questions for Representative Shu?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doctor, just can you go into why you emphasized in theory in your testimony? First, it affirms the need for the act and in theory ensures its continuation.
I'm sorry, come again?
Yeah, in your testimony, you emphasized in italics, in theory ensures the continuation of the act, and just was looking for some, elucidation on that.
Yes, oh, yes, in my written testimony, because I want to, because there's so much more behind support of a state trauma system. I feel I've been part of the ACT for, as I mentioned, since 2012. And I feel like we still have so much more to go to really establish a state trauma system. So this, for me, this bill is just really a small portion of where I would really like to see a state trauma system progress to. So this is part of it. In my ideal world, I would like us to go so much further, but this is a continuation of the essential portion of what we need. We really need so much more, but this is an essential component of it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Representative Black.
Thank you for your comments. I have a couple of questions. Well, one question then a follow-up. You said we have 2,500 cases that are brought into a level 1 trauma center. Is that correct?
Per year for each level 1 trauma center, to be a level 1 adult trauma center, you have to admit at least 2,100 patients per year. So we have 3 level 1 trauma centers throughout the state of Kansas. Wesley Medical Center, St. Francis, and University of Kansas all have to admit about 2,500 patients per year to the trauma service alone.
Okay, so you're looking at an excess of over 6,000 cases then, correct?
Correct.
If you have 3, okay.
Correct.
Do you have any, and this is the follow-up, do you have, well, it's kind of follow-up, do you have any statistics, I'm sure you do, that show what are the most prevalent type of trauma cases that are brought into those 3 trauma centers?
Absolutely. The number 1 cause of trauma throughout the state of Kansas in the adult world is falls. I'm a pediatric surgeon, but it's actually true in pediatrics as well. But the number 1 cause of trauma is falls, and they're in the elderly, believe it or not.
This bode well for me.
So it affects rural Kansas as well as urban Kansas.
And this, I was looking for to see if there's a different part of that, but the other part of this, and this is more towards the staff, the doctors, the nurses, the trauma surgeons. Do you have statistics on how many of those individuals in all 3 trauma centers have experience in a combat zone, working in a field hospital or an aid station?
I do not have that data, sir. I am sure that we could get that for you if you give me a couple of days. Off the top of my head, I do not have that.
If you could, whenever you have a chance, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you give me just a couple of days, I could get that for you. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions for the doctor? No, thank you very much, Doctor. You can head back to your duties of the day, but we appreciate you taking your time out to present your testimony this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that is the oral proponents that I have. Anyone else wish to speak as a proponent to House Bill 2158? Well, committee, I call your attention to, and it's going to be in your information for today's meeting, written only proponent testimony from Tara Mays, Vice President, Kansas Hospital Association, David Johnston, President of the Kansas Emergency Medical Services Association, Rochelle Clumbo, Executive Director, Kansas Medical Society, Dr. Kelsey Larson, MD, Kansas Chapter, American College of Surgeons, Dr. Kenneth Marshall, MD, Kansas Chapter, American College of Surgeons, and Dr. Stephanie Berry, Trauma Medical Director, University of Kansas Health System. So that's all that I show. Again, anyone else as a proponent for this bill? If not, this will close the proponent portion of our hearing, and we will move to the neutral portion. I show no one listed as a neutral that wants to testify or written testimony. Anyone wish to testify neutral on House Bill 2158? If not, we'll close the neutral portion, open the opponent portion of our hearing. And again, I have no one listed as an opponent, either oral or written. Is there anyone that wishes to speak as an opponent to House Bill 2158? Seeing none, this will close the opponent portion of our hearing, and this will officially close our hearing on House Bill 2158. Yes, Representative Toplicker.
Sorry, I had one more question. And it is that I noticed that the expiration date was stricken in the bill, and I just wondered, is there a new expiration date, or are we going to go with the 5-year statutory thing that we talked about earlier?
We'll refer that question to our reviser, Natalie.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. There is no new expiration date put in there. The common practice is after that first review, after that 5 years, we just remove that sunset, but that is a policy determination that's up to you. You guys could put a new sunset date if you wanted to in there.
And thank you, Natalie. And I believe in this appears to have had a pretty good test when you look at up to 7,500 cases a year just in the level 1 centers for review. I think that the 5 years probably provided a pretty good test on this one, and was a reason for no adding of a new sunset date. So that's what I understand, and a very valuable service. I have had lots of communication from my home emergency medical services on the need and the benefit of this. So Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Due to the non-controversial nature of HB 2158 and the weather forecast for next Monday when we are scheduled to work the bill, I move that we suspend the committee rules for the purpose of considering HB 2158 on final action today.
Okay, we have a motion, and Representative Hsu seconds that we suspend the rules and go ahead and work the bill today. And another positive benefit of that, I think, is that the forecast is horrible, and we want to be sure that we get this bill worked. And on Monday, having to be in the building to vote, roads may make that more difficult. So I appreciate Representative Hoheisel's motion to do this, and we need to have at least 12 positive votes to be able to go ahead and do that. So we'll start out, and if we with a voice vote, and see what we have here. All those in favor of this?
Mr. Chairman, if I may real quick, a question for perhaps Natalie on this. Do we need 2/3 of committee present or 2/3 of committee total on this vote?
It will be the 12 members, like Representative Kelly mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Natalie.
And just to make sure that, getting off track there, we'll take our vote here and see what we have on the motion and the second. So all of those in favor of waiving the rules and allowing us to go ahead and work this bill today, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No, we will assume on that we have 12 plus votes to waive the rules and work this bill. So we appreciate that, and we still should get out in doing this. We should be able to get out in record time. So we are going to work our bill today, and on House Bill 2158, do I have a motion concerning House Bill 2158? Representative Hoheisel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out HB 2158 favorably.
Is there a second? Representative Shue seconds. Is there any discussion? Any amendments? If not, Representative Hoheisel, you may close on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
We have the motion to pass out House Bill 2158 favorably. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Opposed? Nay. Okay, the House Bill 2158 passes out favorably. So, Representative Hoheisel?
Mr. Chair, I would like my affirmative vote recorded in the record.
Okay, anyone else wish to have their affirmative vote recorded in the records? See any hands up? Representative Weigel would like to have his. Okay, so those votes will be recorded, and this is passed out favorably. So on Monday, we will still have a meeting, and we'll be looking at, on Monday, having we'll have a couple here. We'll have one on House Bill 2236, authorizing exclusion of sales comparisons approach in mortgage financing appraisals of certain unique residential real estate in rural counties. And we will have a hearing on House Bill 2237, which is extending the eligible time period for the Rural Opportunity Zone program. And so those two will allow us to have the hearing, and if we have road conditions where you may want to participate remotely, that will let you do that. And we'll have our vote where you had to be here taken care of today. So we are adjourned until Monday morning. So have a safe weekend. And hopefully the weather forecasters are completely wrong.